Have you ever really thought about body odor? I mean, beyond just, trying to get rid of it. It's something we all deal with, but the real science behind what makes us smell is way more fascinating and honestly a lot weirder than you probably think. Today, we're going to unravel the surprising biological story of BO.
All right, let's just start with a bit of a bombshell. What if I told you that sweat, the number one thing we all blame for body odor, is actually, get this, 100% odorless when it comes out of your body? I know, it sounds completely wrong, but it is absolutely true.
So if it's not the sweat, what is it? Well, the real story, the source of that distinctive gym locker aroma, has nothing to do with your sweat itself. It all starts when the trillions of invisible passengers living on your skin get involved. We are talking, of course, about bacteria. I want you to think of your skin as this huge, bustling, microscopic city, a metropolis, really, and it's home to this massive community of microbes. Now, these tiny little residents, they're hungry. They absolutely love to feast on the fats and proteins in your sweat and other secretions. And it's their leftovers, basically their digestive process, that creates what we perceive as smell.
The technical term for these smelly leftovers is volatile organic compounds, or VOCs for short. All that means is they're really small, lightweight molecules that evaporate super easily. They float up into the air, right into your nose, and that's when your brain registers a smell. So the key takeaway here is simple. No bacteria, no VOCs, and no body odor.
So let's zoom in on a couple of key neighborhoods in this microbial city, starting with one we're all intimately familiar with, our feet. The official medical term is plantar bromodosis, and foot odor is kind of special because our shoes, well, they create the perfect environment, a warm, dark, humid incubator where very specific bacteria can just go wild. And what's so cool is that different bacteria are like these tiny little chefs, each cooking up their own signature smell. You've got Staphylococcus epidermidis, which creates isovaleric acid that smells like pungent, sharp cheese. And here's the wild part. Brevibacterium linens, which produces that sulfur rotten cabbage smell on your feet, is the exact same bacterium used to ripen stinky cheeses like Limburger. Yep, foot bacteria and cheese bacteria can be one and the same. Okay, let's travel from the feet up to our next stop, the armpit. This area is pretty much ground zero for the strongest body odors, and that's because it has a totally different kind of sweat gland, the apocrine glands. These guys kick into gear at puberty, and they secrete a much richer, thicker sweat that is basically a 5-star gourmet meal for another group of microbes. So how does this happen? It's a really neat 3-step process. First, your apocrine glands release a molecule that is completely odorless. It's just a precursor. Then, a specific bacterium, Staphylococcus hominis, comes along and just gobbles it up. And finally, a special enzyme inside that bacterium acts like a tiny pair of molecular scissors. It snips one single chemical bond, and boom, it unleashes this incredibly powerful molecule called a thioalcohol. That is the classic pungent smell of underarm odor. But here is where it gets really interesting. Not everybody's body even makes that precursor molecule in the first place, and it all comes down to a single gene, ABCC11. You can think of this gene as a gatekeeper. It's the blueprint for building a little protein transporter that literally pushes the odor precursors out of your glands and onto the skin, where the bacteria are waiting. So if you have the G version of this gene, your gatekeeper protein works just fine. It pushes the precursors out and you have what we'd call perceptible body odor. But if you have the A version of the gene, the gatekeeper is broken. It's inactive. The precursors stay locked up inside your cells, which means you have significantly less body odor. And for a truly bizarre party fact, this same exact gene also determines what kind of earwax you have. The G allele is linked to wet earwax and the A allele is linked to dry, flaky earwax. Who knew? And this one genetic switch explains this huge difference in body odor that we see across the globe. Just look at this chart. The low-odor A allele is incredibly common in East Asian populations. We're talking up to 95% of people have it. Now, compare that to people of European or African descent, where it's only found in about 2% of the population. This is the real science behind why deodorant is a bathroom staple in some parts of the world and barely used in others. Now, this same basic principle, bacteria transforming odorless stuff into smelly stuff, also happens in a completely different part of your body, your mouth. When we talk about bad breath or halitosis, the source is in your stomach, which is a common myth. In about 90% of cases, the real source is the colony of bacteria living on the back of your tongue. The main culprits here are what we call anaerobic bacteria, meaning they hate oxygen. so they hide out in all the little nooks and crannies on your tongue. And as they digest proteins from food particles, they release these things called volatile sulfur compounds, or VSCs. You get hydrogen sulfide, which has that classic rotten egg smell, and methyl mercaptan, which smells like rotten cabbage or dirty socks. It is not a pleasant combination.
So what's the deal with morning breath? Why is it so reliably a thing? Well, it's actually pretty simple. When you're asleep, your saliva production just plummets. And saliva is your mouth's natural cleaning crew. It's full of oxygen and it washes bacteria away. So when you're sleeping and your mouth is dry, those anaerobic, sulfur-producing bacteria throw a massive party all night long. You just wake up with the smelly aftermath.
All right, so now that we've kind of cracked the code behind where these odors come from, what can we actually do about it? Let's run through the modern toolkit for managing this whole microbial world, from really simple daily choices to some pretty high-tech solutions.
One of the most fascinating factors is just the shirt you're wearing. Cotton is hydrophilic, which is a fancy way of saying it loves water. It absorbs the watery part of your sweat, pulling it away from your skin. But polyester, on the other hand, is hydrophobic. It hates water. It repels the water, which means all the oily, fatty parts of your sweat, the stuff the bacteria eat, gets trapped right on the surface. And what's worse, studies show that polyester actually helps a particularly stinky bacterium called Micrococcus to grow.
So the strategies we use cover a huge range. You have antiperspirants, which use aluminum salts to literally form a physical plug in your sweat ducts. You can use topical antibiotics to knock down the population of those odor-causing bacteria. For more extreme cases, you have medical options, like Botox injections that temporarily block the nerves that activate sweat glands, or a treatment called Miradry that uses microwaves to zap them away permanently. And it's not just about skin. For bad breath, oral probiotics can introduce good bacteria to crowd out the bad ones. And of course, simple choices like wearing cotton or doing a vinegar foot soak can make a real difference.
So, when you really get down to it, your personal scent isn't some flaw or failure. It's the natural byproduct of a complex and totally unique ecosystem that is living on you and with you. It's a signature, written by your genes and your personal collection of microbes. So the real question isn't how to totally eliminate it, but how you want to manage your own personal microscopic world.